All right, so I just finished trying to do a book review and it was terrible. So I'm going to try and move on to something a little more interesting. I just got, before the book review, I was just in a chat with Daniel, God is my judge, and I asked the question. I had been thinking about explaining or how I came up with my YouTube name. And I had been thinking about doing a video on that for a while because I think it's kind of interesting, and I was wondering if anybody would like to be tagged when I finish up my little story. I'm going to tag a few people, and maybe they can tell how they came up with their names. Now I realize some guys are pretty obvious what your name is or what it means, but if that's the case, just tell me why you put it together the way you put it together, and or just what your thought process was behind it, and whatever story you got that goes along with how you chose your YouTube name, and I'll get into a little bit more of that at the end. But here's mine. So I'm from Bloomington, Indiana. If you know where that's at. I was born and raised in Bloomington, and there is a highway that goes through Bloomington called Highway 37. And now that's, to me, in my mind, that's like the main vein in my life as far as roads go. Highway 37, you get on Highway 37 and you go north, and you end up in Indianapolis. You go through Martinsville and go to Indianapolis. A lot of times we went up there and played ball and did other things, but that's north. Get on Highway 37 and take it south, and you go through Bedford and some of the other small towns. There's other highways, major highways, that go through that area in different directions, but where I lived almost my entire life, maybe 5 minutes from Highway 37. My high school that I went to is actually on or right off of Highway 37. Pretty much everywhere you went, you jumped on 37 and took it to the next, wherever you're going to go as far as the next road or the next highway. So Highway 37, that's where that comes from. Now, here's where maybe the interesting part comes in. After high school, I went to college for a little bit, played around in college, and then I came home and I was at a festival in Bloomington. It's called the Hoosier Fest. This is where I met my wife. How to really tell this story without getting too long. I meet my wife at the Hoosier Fest, and as it turns out, how do I say this? If you get on Highway 37 in Bloomington and you drive south and you stay on Highway 37 and take it all the way south until it stops. Highway 37 just stops. It comes actually to a T. Can you see this? Highway 37 comes to a T and hits the Ohio River. Where it tees, right here is the Ohio River. My wife is from the town that Highway 37 goes to and tees. And as a matter of fact, when I moved down here, just a couple streets over is where I moved. So, if this makes sense, you get on Highway 37, where I grew up, and you take it south, and where it ends is where I moved and married my wife, and that's where she's from. There you have 37 South. That's it in a nutshell. I find it to be kind of an interesting story. I had never heard of the town when I was younger. I've traveled all over Indiana playing ball, but I had never heard of this town until I got out of high school, and this was before I met my wife. I was dating someone else, and her friend, she had met a friend at IU in Bloomington who was from this town. Completely unrelated to me eventually meeting my wife, but but she had a friend that she met in college that was from this town. Then jump ahead, however long it was, a few years, and I meet my wife, who was at IU herself. She was attending IU when we met, and we dated for several years in Bloomington. And then when we got married, we decided to move to her hometown. So we loaded everything we had at that time, which wasn't much, and we drove. We got on 37 and took it south, and moved into a house that her parents owned, and here I am. Now I don't live in that town. I've since then moved town over, and then another town over. So I'm in the general area, but again, that's the story. That's, to take it, and if you want, I wish I had a map, but if you get on a map and go and follow Highway 37 and take it all the way south till it stops, you'll find out what town that I moved in and that she's from. So there you have it. There's my story. As a side, a little side story, but goes kind of along with it. Early on, I think sometime when I was in high school, somehow, I don't know where it came from, there was this shirt that just showed up at my house. Actually, this is kind of interesting, really. And this is where I actually originally got the name. There's this shirt, and it said 37 South. The number 30, just 37 South on the shirt, and it had a highway that a road that meandered through the letters. That showed up at my house, and I asked my mom. I just remember this. Where'd this shirt come from? And it was from a relative. I don't even remember how she had come across it. It was from one of my cousins or aunts or somebody, and somehow it ended up at my house. And she had told me that he either started or was a part of a band or a member of a band that was called 37 South. And at that time, I thought, man, that's a pretty cool name. I don't know why I thought that. So again, jump ahead. Don't even think about me meeting my wife and moving there. 37 South was never on my mind at that point until I decided to start a blog several years ago, and then the other things, and the YouTube channel, and I started using 37 South for everything. So that's the name. That's where 37 South came from. I have other. Well, that's not even necessary to get into some of the other names I've got for other forum names and things that I'm involved with. But that's how I got my YouTube name. It was kind of a toss-up between that and I think it was Armageddon Securities is actually a business name of mine. I was going to go with that for a YouTube channel, but when I really thought it through, 37 South just fit, kind of my life story and that highway and the whole story just kind of fit for me, and so that's it. I don't know if I did a good job getting that across, but that's how I got my YouTube name. Now I'm going to tag some people, and like I mentioned in the beginning, I know that some of you guys' names might be obvious. It might just be your first name or something, but just tell why or how or whatever information that you have in a video and post it, and that'll be that. We'll see how this goes. So Finger Lakes Prepper, go ahead and you're tagged. I'm interested in. You may have talked about your name before. I can kind of figure it out somewhat, but I'm interested. SOS. I want to hear Sergeant B.A. Badass and Sippy. Sippy Cup, we all got kids. We've all had Sippy Cups. I'm assuming that's where that comes from. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about where your name came from, your YouTube name also. But I'm interested in you guys as kind of your handles that you use also. As far as I know, we all get it. but go ahead and just let me know how it came about. Why did you make the final decision? Was it something that you guys just kind of always called yourself and all that, as well as your new YouTube name? So SOS and Finger Lakes Prepper and Wes S. I'm assuming that that's your name, but let me know what's up with your if that's the case and why you decided or whatever information you want to do. I'm interested. I tagged this fella in another video, but I'm still curious about his name. Get Stick Customs. Where is that? What's up with that? Tell me about your name. Hupple's Cat. What you like cats? Is there a cat thing going on there? And then Survival Comms. I mean, we know he's a survival dude and communications kind of expert guy, but whatever information, how did you just come up with that exact name? Whatever you guys want to do. So there's who I'm tagging, and I'm interested in seeing what you guys have to say. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. See you later.